Okay, for first forerunner in the gate. All right, Evelyn Wimsett is our first forerunner. And Evelyn on course. Charlie is the next forerunner up. And Charlie on course at the top. All right, Charlie will be our second and final forerunner on course. All right, first forerunner with a time of 56.97, 56.97. Okay, here comes our final forerunner, looking good here. And forerunner, we get a time of 54.26, 54.26.
Forerunner number 2 is through the finish.
Okay, bib 1 in the gate, ready to go. All right, bib 1 on course. This is Elsa Speck on course here. Next up in the gate, Tara Chase. And Tara Chase on course at the top. Elsa Speck nearing the bottom. Here comes Elsa to the finish. Elsa, bib 1 with a 59.76. 59.76 for bib 1. Bib 3, Ava Sutherland on course. Sloan Bodziak next up in the start gate. Tara Chase tucking into the finish here. Tara, 1:02.11, 1:02.11. Sloan Bodziak on course at the top. Valentina Brogy next up in the start gate. Ava Sutherland mid-course coming at us. All right, Ava Sutherland, bib 3 with a 1 minute, 1:00.09. Valentina Brogi on course at the top. Aria Ostricki in the start gate. Coming through the finish, bib 4, Sloan 50.57, 50.57. Okay, on course right now. Area Ostrowski. All right, Hannah Treschel on course at the top. Coming through the finish. Area with, this is bib 6 with a 106.70. 106.70. Mia Martin next up in the start. Mia on course at the top. Course. All right, Hannah, bib 7 on course. Mia Martin on course. Next up, bib 10, Amelia Stone in the start gate. Coming through the finish, Hannah 52.68, 52.68. Amelia Stone on course at the top. Bib 11, Lauren Meehan in the start gate. Mia Martin coming to the bottom here. This is bib 8, making good looking turns. Mia Martin, 49.91, 49.91. All right, bib 10, Amalia Stone, mid-course. Lauren Meehan on course at the top. Next up in the start gate, Abigail Hatmanik. At the finish, bib 10, Stone with a 57.90. Bib 10, 57.90. Lauren Meehan next up through the finish on course at the top, Abigail, bib 12. At the finish, bib 11, Lauren with a 104.74. 104.74. Ariana Laro on course in the middle. Lauren, Abigail bib 12 just came through with a 51.87. 51.87. Elizabeth Barney on course at the top, coming to the finish. Ariana. And bib 13. All right, bib 13 just came through with a 59.68. 59.68 for Ariana. Elizabeth, next up through the finish. Up in the start gate, Maribel Murphy. Coming through the finish, we just had bib 15, Elizabeth, with a 54.96. 54.96. And up at the top, local, Maribel Murphy, bib 16, on course. Elizabeth Tindo, bib 15, just got a 54.96. Maribel Murphy, Powderhorn, local, mid-course right now. Up at the top, Daphne Moak, on course. Next up in the start gate, Mia Spanring. All right, Mia on course at the top, coming to the finish. Maribel Murphy, 1:02:38. 1:02:38 for bib 16. Up at the top, Mia Spanrig at the top. Lucy Vasquez next up in the start gate. Daphne coming to the finish here. Daphne appears to be out. Oh, no, that's 1:08. That's bib 18 DNF. Yep. And coming through the finish, bib 17, Daphne with a 56.53. 56.53. Bib 19, Lucy on course. Rami Shepard next up in the start gate. And Rami on course at the top. Lucy coming to the bottom. Bib 19 nearing the bottom here. Mid-course, Rami Shepard up at the top. Sierra Boulot, bib 21 in the start gate. At the finish, bib 19, Lucy Vasquez, 57.66. 57.66. Francina Jordan on course, or I'm sorry, in the start gate. Coming to the finish, Rami Shepard, mid-course, Sierra Boulot. Rami pulling into a tuck to the finish. Rami, bib 20 with a 53.89. 53.89. Francina on course at the top. At the finish, bib 21, Sierra with a 54.44. 54.44. Rin Weatherly, another Powderhorn local, on course at the top. Francina Jordan, mid-course, coming to the bottom here. At the finish, bib 22, Francina 54.73. 54.73. Up at the top, Brooklyn Beckerman on course. Brinley Feisner next up in the start gate. Ren Weatherly, bib 23, working her way to the finish. Mid-course, Brooklyn Beckerman. Brinley Feisner in the start gate. Coming through the finish, Rin Weatherly, 55.48. 55.48. Brinley on course at the top. Gabrielle Kozicki in the start gate. Brooklyn nearing the finish here. Bib 24 coming to the finish. Brooklyn 57.67, 57.67. Gabrielle Kozicki on course. Annika Tolan next up in the start gate. Brinley Feisner nearing the bottom. Brinley 50.35 for bib 25, 50.35. Up at the top, Annika Toland on course. Next up in the start gate, Piper Christopher. Bib 26 nearing the bottom. False start. All right, here comes Gabrielle. This is bib 26. 54.32, 54.32 for Gabrielle. At the top, on course, Mary Novotny. Mary Novotny on course at the top. Mid-course, Piper coming to the finish. All right, coming to the finish, bib 27. We got a false start. And bib 27, false start. Piper, or bib 27, Annika Toland, 1 minute, 0.87. What's 100.87? Olivia Current next up in the start gate. Bib 30. Next to the finish is going to be bib 28. Mid-course is bib 29. Up at the top, Olivia on course at the top. Coming through the finish, bib 28, Piper with a 1:08.58. 1:08.58. Next up in the start gate, Emily Hilsendanger, Emily H. from Summit is in the start gate. Nearing the finish, Mary. Okay, Emily on course at the top, bib 29. And Mary, bib 29, gets a 1:09.41. 1:09.41. We're good for it. We're doing good. And bib 30, Olivia, 52.25. 52.25 for bib 30, Olivia. Emily, mid-course. Kia Shine next up in the start gate. And Joni Freudenberger is next up in the start. Kia on course at the top. Emily nearing the bottom. Coming to the finish, bib 31, Emily with a 58.39, 58.39. Joni on course at the top, Parker Jones next up in the start gate. Holding good speed to the finish here. Kia, bib 32, finishes with a 50.31, 50.31. That is a good time. Parker Jones on course at the top. Coming to the finish here. Next up is Joni Freudenberger. Kristen Sung next up in the start gate. And bib 33, Joni finishes 53.88, 53.88. Up at the top, Kristen Sung on course. Jane Claire Pendleton next up in the start gate. False start. Parker Jones nearing the bottom. Next finisher is going to be bib 34, Parker Jones, 47.74. 47.74. I believe that might be the fastest we've seen so far, unofficially. Good run, Parker. Up at the top, Jane Claire Pendleton on course. Kristen Sung nearing the bottom, Jane Claire on course. Emma Johnson next up in the start gate. And Emma Johnson on course at the top. Margot Weber next up in the start gate. Coming to the finish is Kristen Sung, bib 35. Kristen with a 1:05.71. 1:05.71. Margot Weber next up in the start gate. Up at the top, Emma Johnson on course. Coming to the finish, Jane Claire Pendleton. Margot on course at the top. And bib 36, Jane Claire Pendleton finishing 1:06.82. 1:06.82. Up at the top, Maja Bamber, ready to drop, coming through the finish, bib 37. Emma with a 55.75. 55.75. Maja on course at the top. Margot Weber nearing the bottom. And coming to the bottom, bib 38. Margot 53.35. 53.35. Georgia Riatti on course, bib 40 at the top. Maja Bamber coming to the finish. Next up in the start gate, Nora Scheid. Coming to the finish, bib 39 with a 50.87. 50.87. That's a good run. Nora Schneid on course at the top. Coming to the finish is bib 40. Mid-course headed down to us, Georgia Riatti. Georgia. All right, Georgia with a 52.80, 52.80. Up in the start gate, Amelia on course. '42 Nora mid-course. At the top, Amelia on course. Evelyn Davis next up in the start. Looking good at the finish. Nora, bib 42 with a 53.23, 53.23 for bib 42, Nora. Up at the top, Evelyn Davis on course. Mid-course, Amelia. Virgin Gillian in the start gate. At the finish, bib 43, Amelia with the time of 57.38. 57.38. Up at the top, Emmeline Springer in the start gate. Bergen Gillian on course at the top. Evelyn Davis nearing the bottom. Evelyn Davis, bib 44, comes through with a 50.47. 50.47. Emmeline Springer on course at the top. Ewan Peterson in the start. Emmy mid-course. Coming to the finish is bib 45. Bergen Gillian. Bergen 58.44, 58.44. Emmy coming to the finish here. Emma Summers next up at the start gate. False start. Bib 46. Emmy just came through with a 51.33. 51.33. Emma Summers on course at the top. Snow McCubbin in the start gate. Ewan Peterson coming to the bottom. Okay, up at the top, Snow McCubbin on course. Coming to the finish, Emma Summers, bib 48, nearing the bottom. Bib 47 had some troubles, is not going to finish this run. Get a chance this afternoon. That is Emma Summers, bib 48, coming through the finish, 52.45, 52.45. Up at the top, Snow McCubbin on course. Avery Dye next up in the start gate. And Avery Dye on course at the top. Bryce Dvorkin in the start gate. Snow nearing the bottom, mid-course, Avery Dye. Coming to the finish here, we've got bib 49. Bryce on course at the top. Snow, bib 49, finishes with a 59.40, 59.40. Anderson, Siebert Warner in the start gate. All right, Avery Dye, bib 50, coming to the finish. Anderson on course at the top. Coming through the finish, that was bib 50. Avery with a 58.41, 58.41. Charlie McCleary next up in the start gate. Bryce nearing the bottom, going through the rollers. The course we're running on today is called Wonder Bump. And the bumps really do throw you off as you're coming through. Up at the top, Charlie McCleary on course. Caroline Boyle next up in the start gate. At the finish, bib 51, Bryce with a 104.42. 104.42. Next up through the finish, Anderson, bib 52. Anderson with a 54.48. 54.48. Up at the top, Caroline Boyle on course. Olivia McGabby next up in the start gate. Coming to the bottom, Charlie. Olivia in the start, ready to go. Caroline looking good in the middle. Coming to the bottom, Charlie McCleary, bib 53. 1 minute, 0.04. That's 1:00.04 for Charlie. Olivia McGabby on course at the top. Sophie Verrier next up in the start gate. Carolyn, bib 54, coming to the bottom here. Carolyn, bib 54 with a 58-13, 58-13. Up at the top, Sophie Verrier on course. Next up in the start gate, Millie Waugh. Nearing the bottom, bib 55, Olivia. Olivia, 55 with a 55.59, 55.59. Up at the top, Millie Waugh on course. Imogene Harney next up in the start. At the finish, we got Sophie, bib 56, making a nice turn there. Sophie with a 55.02, 55.02. Up at the top, Imogene Harney on course. Millie, mid-course. Millie getting to the bottom here, looking good. Next up in the start gate, Ruby Bullivant in the start gate. Coming through the finish, bib 57, Millie 52.33. 52.33. On course to the top, Ruby Bullivant. Ariana Cohen next up in the start gate. Ruby on course at the top. Imogene working her way to the bottom here. Ooh, Imogene catching, but holding it together right there. Bib 58, Imogene with a time of 57.19. 57.19. Bib 59, Ruby with a 49.37. 49.37. Up at the top, Charlotte Miller on course. Billy Dorado Boysen next up in the start gate. Ariana Cohen, nearing the bottom here. Bib 60, Ariana 54.89, 54.89. Up at the top, Billy Dorado Boysen on course. Next up in the start gate, Cecilia Valentino. All right, Charlotte Miller coming to the bottom here. Charlotte, bib 61, 57.58, 57.58 for Charlotte Miller. Cecilia Valentino on course at the top. Eleanor Sauter in the start gate. Eleanor on course at the top. Coming to the bottom, bib 62, Billy Dorado Boysen with a time of 1:04.25, 1:04.25. Hayden Chakowski in the start gate. Cecilia coming to the bottom, Eleanor mid-course. Long, fun course today. They've got good speed coming into our Wonder Bumps. Up at the top, Hayden Chakowski on course. Coming through the finish, bib 63 with a 1 minute, .33. That's 1:00.33. Evelyn Neller next up in the start gate. Hayden on course at the top. Eleanor coming to the bottom here. This is going to be bib 64, tuck into the finish with a 57.68. 57.68 for bib 64, Eleanor. Next up in the start gate, Emily Vignali. Hayden coming to the bottom, mid-course, Evelyn Neller. For parents watching, I had technical difficulties getting the live camera feed running this morning, but I am recording it, and I will upload that video later after the day is done, so you can watch the runs back. Coming through the finish, bib 65, Hayden with a 59.63, 59.63. Up at the top, Hope Gustafson in the start gate. False start. Evelyn coming to the finish here. Bib 66, Evelyn, 55.09. Hope Gustafson on course at the top. Ashley Vignali in the start. We're going to slow down the start intervals to a minute gaps. Coming through the finish, bib 66, just had a 55.09. Next up through the finish is 67, Emily, with a 56.92, 56.92 for bib 67. Hope Gustafson on course. Ashley Vignali next up in the start. Start. 68, Hope with a 50.10. 50.10 for Hope. Up at the top, Ashley getting ready. Here we go. Ashley on course. Next up in the start gate, Powderhorn local Amelia Wimsett. Ashley putting on a show here. Going fast, skiing loose. False start. This is bib 69. Ashley coming to the bottom. Amelia Wimsett still loaded in the start gate. Ashley comes through with a 57.57. Amelia Wimsett on course at the top. Next up, Amelia Schenk. Okay, Amelia Schenk ready to go in the start. Coming to the finish, Amelia Wimsett. And at the top, final racer, bib 7 on course. I'm sorry, bib 71 on course, Amelia Schenk, final racer. Coming to the finish, Amelia Wimsett, bib 70 with a 1:02.45. 1:02.45. Bib 71, Amelia looking good so far. Final racer, bib 71, Amelia, through clean 1:00.06. Okay, Forerunner is on course. Forerunner 1 on course. Forerunner 2 on course. We're going to have a third forerunner before racing begins. Okay, the second forerunner just came through with the time of 59.72. And
Forerunner wearing F9.
up at the top, Robert Dosher, bib 101 in the start gate. Robert on course. Ooh, and Robert goes down, slides almost below the. Yep, he's out. All right, Clay A. Conkling, bib 102, next up in the start gate. And Clay on course. Barrett Groff next up in the start gate. At the top, Barrett ready to go, loading up, and blasts out of the gate. Barrett Groff on course, Clay mid-course, Aiden Changuin next up in the start. Coming to the finish is going to be 102, Clay. Clay pulling into the tuck, 54.95, 54.95. Aiden on course at the top. Next up in the stop, Asher Lamata. At the finish, bib 103, Barrett with a 47.38, 47.38. Really good run. Asher Lamata on course at the top. Cole Chandler next up in the start gate. Bib 104 racing to us. At the finish, bib 104, Aiden with a time of 54.71, 54.71. Up at the top, Cole Chandler on course. Coming to the finish here. Oh, next up in the start gate, Julian Suki, 107 in the start gate. Coming to the bottom here, bib 105, Asher Lamata, 53.41, 53.41. Up at the top, Julian on course. Luke Marshall next up in the start gate. Nearing the bottom, Cole Chandler, bib 106. That's 106. Cole with a 50.52. 50.52. Up at the top, 107. Luke Marshall on course. Desmond Bahoshi in the start gate. 107. Julian racing at us. Yeah, Julian holding that tuck early. 107 with a time of 54.68. 54.68. Desmond on course at the top. Miles Vinzara next up in the start gate. Luke Marshall mid-course headed to us. Luke Marshall 108 with a 50.35. 50.35. Up at the top, Miles is on course. Desmond mid-course. William Nerling next up in the start gate. At the finish, 109. Desmond with a 55.15. 55.15. Miles, bib 110 mid-course. Up at the top, William Nerling on course. Felix Hoagland next up in the start gate. That course is really soft. It's starting to fall apart. I can see how rough it is for him. Miles, bib 110, coming to the finish here. Miles with a time of 57.53. 57.53 for bib 110. Felix Hoagland on course at the top. Ramsey Burkett in the start gate. William, bib 111 with the time of 57.44. 57.44. Ramsey Burkett on course at the top. Nolan Kaneda in the start gate. Felix nearing the bottom. This is 112, finishing with 56.13. 56.13. About the top, Nolan Kaneda on course. Eli Davenport next up in the start gate. Mid-course, Ramsey Burkett. Ramsey, bib 113 with the 56.84. 56.84. About the top, Eli Davenport on course. North Brown next up in the start gate. Nolan coming to the bottom. North Brown loaded in the start gate. Coming through the finish, bib 114. Nolan 56.15. 56.15. North on course at the top. Mid-course, Eli Davenport. Clark Rowland next up in the start gate. Bib 115, Eli comes through at 52.83. 83. Clark Rowland on course to the top. Nixon Dodge next up in the start gate. Nixon Dodge ready to go at the start. Clark Rowland mid-course. North Brown coming to the finish here. North, bib 116, 101.61, 101.61. Thomas down next up in the start gate. Nixon at the top. Clark Rowland coming to the bottom. All right, bib 117, DNF. 118, Nixon Dodge on course. Thomas down next up in the start. That's bib 118, Nixon 53.97, 53.97. Okay, Thomas down in the start, ready to go. Thomas down on course at the top. Joaquin Schupp next up in the start gate. Joaquin Schupp in the start gate. Joaquin on course at the top. Next up in the start, Ansel Garrett. Bib 119, Thomas down 49.54, 49.54. Ansel Garrett in the start. Ansel on course. Mid-course, Joaquin Schupp. Next up in the start, Can Kuruvia. I'm doing my best on that. Coming to the finish here, bib 120. Okay, bib 120 with a time of 1 minute, 0.98. That's 1:00.98. Can on course to the top. Ansel Garrett nearing the bottom. Short course hold for slippers. False start. And bib 121, Garrett with a 57.41. 57.41. Next up in the start gate, Jack Cowie in the start gate. Coming to the finish, Can. Looking good here. Smooth, fast turns on edge. That's bib 122 with a time of 51.41. 51.41. Up at the top, Jack Cowie on course. Jack Cowie on course. Wyatt Jacobson next up in the start gate. Oh, no. Wyatt Jacobson next up in the start gate. Wyatt on course. Okay, bib 124. That's Wyatt Jacobson. Just had trouble up there. Coming to the finish is bib 123, Jack Cowie, 57.70. 57.70. 124. That's Wyatt Jacobson, DNF. We have Tiger Sailor on course right now. Next up in the start gate, Donovan Frazier is held up in the start gate. Start stop while we get the skier safely off course in the upper section right now. This is Tigert Sailor, mid-course. Donovan Frazier in the start gate being held. That was a tough crash. All right, at the finish, bib 125. Okay, Tiger Sailor, 53.92, 53.92. Donovan Frazier clear to start. Donovan on course. Donovan on course at the top. Next up at the start. Isaac Payne. Up at the top, Isaac Payne on course. Sylvester Newman next up in the start. Coming to the bottom, Donovan Frazier. Ooh, up at the top, Isaac Payne has a trouble. Coming through the finish, 126, Donovan, 55.11, 55.11. Up at the top, Sylvester Newman on course. Zachary DeCanio in the start gate. Zachary on course at the top. Colin Chaput in the start gate. Bib 128, Sylvester having a good run here. That's bib 128, Sylvester, 52.11, 52.11. Colin on course at the top. Zachary mid-course. Next up in the start gate, Michael Major. Okay, Gareth Mann, 133 on course at the top, coming through the finish, bib 130. Colin with a 102.90, 102.90. Michael Major coming to the bottom, up at the top, Gareth Mann in the start gate. Henry Branham Through the finish, bib 131, Michael 48.51, 48.51. That's a good time. Up at the top, Henry on course, Eli Greenberg next up in the start gate.
Right across from the parent entry area.
At the finish, bib 133, Gareth Mann 50.23, 50.23. 134 Henry on course. There's a short course hold here while Ski Patrol works their way down. Okay, Eli Greenberg in the start gate. Coming to the finish here. Henry, bib 134. Henry 102.64. 102.64. So right now, Ski Patrol has the injured skier, and we are waiting for a new ski patroller to be at the top of the course so that we have instant, help if anything else happens on the course. So we're just waiting for a new ski patrol to cycle around to the start. As a reminder to the parents out there, I could not get the live stream running this morning, but I am recording today's races and I will upload them to powderhornracing.org, powderhornracing.org. So you can watch back the runs later if you need to. It's kind of fun sometimes. We'll try to get the live stream running for the afternoon course. Here comes our ski patroller with the injured athlete. I believe this is Wyatt Jacobson. All right, give him a cheer. Give him a cheer, everybody. Wyatt, you're going to be good, buddy. Good effort out there. Okay, course is clear. We're just waiting for the next ski patroller to arrive. I see ski patroller arriving at the top. Bib 135. This is going to be Eli Greenberg. Eli Greenberg next up in the start gate. Getting ready to start any moment here. Yeah, Eli getting his poles ready up there in the start. Kind of clapping his skis together. I see maybe a thumbs up. And Eli on course. Here we go. Finish time on that guy?
I'm working on it.
Okay, bib 135, Eli, we will have to get you a time later. Our system locked up. We did not get in the computer. I didn't get start and stop. It's okay. We've got the timers, got the times. We are resetting the computer now. Okay, up on course, Brody Bruce comes through the finish. Charlie Quinn on course at the top. Brooks Brownson next up in the start gate. Adric mid-course. Coming through the finish, we just had bib 136 with a 58.47. 136, 58.47. Brooks Brownson next up in the start gate. Bib 137. Adric 54.19. 54.19. Up at the top, Brooks Brownson on course. Henry Shea next up in the start gate. Henry in the start, coming to the bottom. Charlie Quinn, bib 138. All right, Charlie, bib 138 with a 55.92. 55.92. Bib 139, Brooks on course. Henry Shea on course. Oliver Lake next up in the start gate. Oliver on course at the top. Through the finish, bib 139, Brooks, 59.46. 59.46. Thomas Martini in the start gate. Henry Shea nearing the bottom. Oliver Lake up at the top. Coming through the finish, bib 140 with a time of 55.88. 55.88. Hagen Strokes in the start gate. Thomas Martini on course at the top. Mid-course heading to us, Oliver Lake. Oliver, bib 141 with a time of 55.24. 55.24. Up at the top, Hagen on course. Otis Wood in the start gate. Thomas, bib 142 with a good time of 51.51. About the top, Otis Wood on course. Joseph, next up in the start gate, Joseph Halovanik in the start. Coming to the finish, Hagen Strokes, bib 143. Hagen has a little slip out there, holds it together. That's bib 143 with a time 52.97. 52.97. Up at the top, Joseph H. on course. Jack Hardy next up in the start gate. Jack Hardy in the start gate. Coming through the finish, Otis, bib 144 with a time of 51.96. 51.96. Jack Hardy on course at the top. Luke Atwood next up in the start. Luke Atwood in the start. Jack Hardy at the top. Joseph nearing the bottom here. Bib 145. 1 minute, 0.06 for Joseph. Bib 145. 1:00.06. Up at the top. Look out. Luke Atwood in trouble already. Bib 147. All right, Lincoln Laurie next up in the start gate. Jack Hardy mid-course. Lincoln on course at the top. At the bottom, Jack Hardy, bib 146, 106.88. 106.88. Alex Danzer in the start gate. Lincoln Laurie mid-course. And Alex on course at the top. Jason Weber next up in the start gate. Jason Weber getting ready in the start. Alex on course at the top. Lincoln Laurie coming into the bottom here. This is bib 148. Lincoln 53.81. 53.81. About the top, Jason Weber on course. Park Jarabka in the start. False start. Jason Weber at the top of the course. Alex Danzer nearing the bottom here. This is bib 149. Alex with a 58.57. 58.57. Park on course at the top. Gabe O'Connor next up in the start gate. Jason Weber pulling into a tuck at the finish. This is bib 150. Jason Weber, 56.81. 56.81. Up at the top, Gabe O'Connor on course. Lincoln Dakake in the start. Park coming to the finish, bib 151. Park keeping it under a minute with the 59.23. 59.23. Lincoln on course to the top. Ansel Stokes in the start gate. False start. Gabe O'Connor coming to the finish. Mid-course, Lincoln, Ansel Stokes ready to go on the start. And Ansel on course. James Cowie next up in the start gate. Coming through the finish, bib 152. Gabe, 102.55. 102.55. James Cowie in the start gate. Ansel Stokes, top of the course. Bottom of the course coming at us, Lincoln. Bib 153, Lincoln 56.21. 56.21 for Lincoln. Up at the top, James Cowie on course. Ingram Olson next up in the start gate. Short course hold for the slippers to come through. Speaking of coming through the finish, bib 154, Ansel Stokes 54.30. 54.30. Ingram Olson held in the start gate for slippers to go through. James Cowie on course solo right now. Last skier through bib 154. 54 was a 54.30. At the finish here, 155, James 55.86. Up at the top, Ingram Olson on course. David Mora Bernat in the start gate. David looks ready up at the start. David on course. Next up in the start, Forrest Canava. All right, coming to the finish, bib 156. Ingram Olson with a 1 minute, 0.81. So that's 1:00.81. Forrest on course at the top. Cameron McCallum in the start gate. Ooh, wow, Forrest putting on a show up there. Got really loose for a second. Yes. All right, Cameron McCallum on course at the top. Aiden Lamada in the start gate. Bib 157 DNF'd, fell out, missed a gate somewhere. I didn't actually see it. Coming through the finish, Forrest 158 with a 54.17. 54.17 for bib 158. About the top, Murray Trosterman in the start gate. Aiden Lamada on course at the top. Cameron McCallum working his way to the bottom here. It just started snowing. Cameron, bib 159, 58.58. Bib 160 on course. Murray Trosterman on course at the top. Next up in the start gate, Taylor Adam. The snow just started falling again. All right, Taylor on course at the top. Leif Erickson next up in the start gate. Aiden, bib 160, comes through with a 59.83. 59.83. Murray coming to the bottom here. Looks like holding good speed. That's bib 161 with the 52.97. 52.97. Leif Erickson on course at the top. Taylor Adam getting to the bottom. Miro Misconi in the start gate. All right, at the finish, bib 162, Taylor 54.71, 54.71. About the top, Miro Misconi on course. Gage Gross in the start gate. At the bottom, bib 163, Leaf with a 55.67. 55.67. About the top, Gage Gross on course. Owen Wall next up in the start gate. Miro Misconi next up at the bottom, bib 164. Owen Wall in the start gate. Gage at the top, coming to the bottom here. Miro. Miro pulls into that tuck. Miro, bib 164, 59.22. Ivan Runquist in the start gate. Gage, Bib 165 with the good time, 53:45, 53:45. About the top, Ivan Runquist on course, Jack Doran, Jack 166. All right, 166 DNF. Nicholas Bosma in the start gate. Jack Doran had a problem at the top. Bib 167, Ivan with a time of 57:50. 57:50 for bib 167, Ivan. 166 DNF, 168 DNF. Up at the top, we've got Nicholas on course. We are moving to a 1-minute interval on the final few competitors here. Simon Vargas Miller next up in the start. Nicholas Bosma on course. Nicholas coming to the bottom here, looking good. Nicholas, bib 169, 51.86, 51.86. Up in the top, Simon, ready to start. And Simon on course. Leo De Stefano in the start gate. This is Simon Vargas Miller, at the top of the course right now. Leo in the start gate, getting ready to go. Simon having a clean run so far. And Leo on course at the top. Coming through the finish, bib 170. Next up in the start gate, Oliver Nelson, bib 173. Last skier through, Simon with a 59.06, 59.06. Leo mid-course. Okay, Leo coming to the bottom. Oliver ready to start. Oliver on course at the top. Leo, bib 171, 59.89.